Uh, Listen, smart me up about New Jack here.
Okay.
You said he's had plenty of criticism, some of which is deserved. I don't know that much about him.
Okay. Well, he wrestled an underage guy in 1996 named Eric Koulos. And, Eric came to a show looking to get booked, and either Balls Mahoney or Axel Rotten, somebody like that. I think it was Axel, maybe no showed. So they had an empty spot on the card and they needed Devon Dudley to have a tag team partner against the Gangstas, which is Mustafa and of course New Jack. And Eric Koulos, while he was a big kid, dressed sort of almost like in a cop uniform, a mass transit type uniform. And that was the name that he called himself, Mass Transit. And he was not really hip to pro wrestling etiquette. And he just starts going over, hey, here's what all I want to do. And that's not your job as a enhancement guy, just brought in for the day. You're not trying to get your spots in. That rubbed people the wrong way. And then eventually they said, well, it's ECW, you're going to have to get color. And he says, well, I've never done it. Will you do it for me? And New Jack just allegedly grins like the Cheshire Cat, goes out there, stiffs the fuck out of him, and then cuts him from ear to ear. And the kid starts freaking out because he is not just cut, he's cut bad and gushing blood. And his dad panics and is running towards the ring and screaming, he's 17. The kid had lied about his age and his experience. Apparently he had only done like comedy gimmick, like, quote unquote midget matches, which is probably not what you're supposed to call it now, but that's what it was called back then. And, it cost ECW a lot of opportunity. They were supposed to be on pay-per-view sooner, and Bruce Mitchell, our friend here, wrote about what happened and allegedly sent a tape to Viewer's Choice, and they lost their pay-per-view clearance. That happened in November of 1996. But fast forward, he would get in fights with fans. And then after ECW, he worked in a company called XPW. And there he saw an opportunity to sort of get revenge on an opponent. So there was a big guy named Vic Grimes who the WWF was interested in, and he's working with New Jack here in ECW. And they were supposed to do a big spot where they fall off the top of the building sort of thing through some tables. Cause New Jack at this era is jumping off stuff.
Sure.
And the guy was hesitant to go. So when he actually went, he accidentally landed on New Jack's head, and supposedly he lost vision in his eye, went deaf in an ear, brain fluid comes out of his ear. New Jack never forgot that. So, or maybe brain fluid out of his nose, whatever New Jack says. Anyway, it was bad. And the guy, was in New Jack's crosshair. So when they wrestled in a scaffold match,
oh my God,
New Jack threw him, or tried to throw him off the scaffold. And instead of going through tables, wanted to throw him and hit the floor and murder him. He was not successful, but the guy did not just land flush on the tables. He wound up hitting part of the ropes and bouncing violently. And it was very, very bad. And then another time he wrestled a guy named Gypsy Joe. Have you heard of Gypsy Joe before?
Is he alive?
Gypsy Joe was a longtime journeyman wrestler who was very much elderly by the time they actually wrestled. I think he passed away when he was like 82. So when he was like in his 70s somewhere, he has a match with New Jack, and New Jack.
Can I interrupt you here?
Yes.
Stories like this are only on our ECW shows. Yeah. Go ahead. Continue.
Well, apparently New Jack says that, Gypsy Joe headbutted him in the nose for real. And he wasn't selling for New Jack. So New Jack decides, I know how to fix that. So, he starts hitting him with a baseball bat for real. Several other stuff too, but
Jesus.
Anyway, there was another time in 2004 where he was wrestling an independent guy, and that guy is not really selling. I think he makes the mistake of hitting New Jack for real. So then New Jack just reaches in his pants and pulls out a knife and stabs him 14 times.
God.
In the middle of the match.
Oh my God.
And I think once upon a time he was in a relationship with, your great close personal friend, Terry Runnels.
Right.
And, or I'm sorry, Boatwright or whatever.
Yeah.
And I think there may or may not have been extracurricular activities, but at one point, he started to leak pictures and videos of her. And one of them was where he had convinced her to blade herself and she was bleeding from the forehead.
Mm.
So he's just always found himself sort of surrounded by controversy.
Right. That it sounds like that. Maybe he created some of it. Not sure, but maybe he did.
He's, years ago would show his, fist to the camera and talk about how he has no knuckles in one of his hands. Mm-hmm. And people would ask what for, and he would say something like, that's from beating a bitch in the eye. Mm. And, then he had a tattoo of like, bullets, and these were all of his justifiable homicides from being a bounty hunter.
Jesus.
So New Jack was, a character and a half. Fair to say?
This is incredible. These are fucking incredible stories. Holy mother. No wonder he didn't get mainstream.
Well, one of the funny things that became, sort of rumor and innuendo in wrestling is they were going to run an angle with Carlito, Carlos Colon's son in the WWF, that he perhaps was involved in the stabbing of John Cena. They were going to run a stabbing angle.
Oh my God.
And fans were hot and heavy on the rumor that, hey, they're going to bring in New Jack for this stabbing angle. Because New Jack had a reputation of,
I guess so.
Yeah.
Stabbing somebody 14 times. That would be a reputation.
Mm-hmm.
And Nitro, New World Order, and the Crow, Thunder, Russo, Arquette, Champ, Vinnie Mac, simulcast. Tony's back with Conrad, not your classy podcast. Watch along, try not to laugh. Lowest rules, cat back. This wasn't the initial plan. Tom's executive